If you feel like your ostinatos are boring and you want to make them more exciting,
I am not boring, you're boring!
I'm going to show you a simple rule you can follow to make them better. We'll look at examples from a bunch of film and video game soundtracks and look at 3 ways that you can apply this rule to make more interesting and engaging music. Towards the end of college, I took some private lessons in music composition. After looking through a piece that I had written that was less than successful, my teacher gave me some simple advice that I still remember today. He said that I should make a rule for myself that I would never write a measure that was just 4 plain quarter notes. He explained that 4 quarter notes in 4/4 time was about as characteristic as a metronome counting off the tempo.
And it was so boring.
With the music not doing anything more than just keeping time, I needed to find something to make it more interesting. This could be done by changing note lengths, by adding notes. It didn't really matter how I solved it, just that I needed to.
Cool, let's do something fun.
I've since expanded this rule to not just be for times where I have 4 quarter notes in a row, but really any situation where the music is just kind of chugging along like a metronome without having any character or life.
What are you doing? Nothing.
I still keep this rule in mind when writing melodies, but I found it to be especially useful when writing ostinatos. Ostinatos are short musical ideas that repeat, sometimes with and sometimes without variation. They're often about a bar long, but they don't have to be. Ostinatos are great because they're like a musical motor, giving you this energetic, rhythmic drive that you can then add other lines on top of. Film composers use ostinatos all the time, especially in scenes where we need energy or action to keep things moving. So if your ostinatos are lifeless and boring, it might be because you're betraying that rule.
You broke the code, bro.
And your ostinatos are just ticking away the time without giving you the actual energy that you think it will.
No, it's not what you think. It's much, much worse.
There are 3 things you can do to keep your ostinato from being a glorified metronome. You could add or repeat notes, you could delete notes or stretch time with dotted rhythms, or you can use variations to swap up the pattern and keep it fresh. Let's look at examples of scores that keep their ostinatos interesting by doing these 3 different things. We'll start with adding or repeating notes. Besides the memes, the best thing to come out of Star Wars: The Phantom Menace was John Williams' track Duel of the Fates. And at the heart of that cue is this little ostinato figure. But listen to what it would sound like if we took away just one little 16th and instead ticked away on an 1/8 note pulse. It took hardly any extra effort at all, but that one little 16th note adds so much individuality and uniqueness to this ostinato, and is really what makes it alive and interesting. The main theme from Game of Thrones is a very similar thing. It would be easy to feel like this 3/4 pattern was doing its job as a background part. But by adding just one little note at the end of the lick, the whole thing comes alive. What I love about this rule is how simple it is to fix. You really don't have to do much to make the line more interesting and to give it life. Just the tiniest little tweak can make a so-so line into a defining characteristic of a franchise. The second thing you can do is shift the rhythm around or even delete notes. For example, in Mario Odyssey, it would have been very easy to write this ostinato as the underlying motor for the Brutal's battle theme. But again, with just a few simple tweaks, we can turn it into something with a lot more energy and activity. The third 1/8 note gets shortened to a 16th, bringing this G a moment earlier. Then the second part is stretched with these 2 dotted 1/8 notes. The result is a much more bouncy and syncopated rhythm that keeps Mario on his toes. In the Knights Academy from Skyward Sword, all it takes is deleting an 1/8 note and replacing it with a rest to take something standard like this, and instead make it into something light and nimble like this. The third way you can apply this rule to make a better ostinato is to change it up and swap out the patterns. There are 2 ways that John Williams could have written the ostinato from the cue Dennis steals the embryo from Jurassic Park. It just ticked away the time. Using 1/8 notes, he might have come up with this. Or using quarter note triplets, he could have made this. But being John Williams, he did something better and combined them. This version is so much more interesting and keeps our attention for longer, which also helps keeps the ostinato from feeling repetitive and monotonous, which it would if it was just ticking away the time. This rule doesn't just apply to ostinatos, but to melodies, accompaniment patterns, really anything. For example, compare this quarter note theme with the actual theme. The second is obviously so much better, and again, it really didn't take much to get there. And of course, I feel like I have to preempt the comments a bit and point out that no, this is not a real rule.
The code is more what you'd call guidelines than actual rules.
You will find plenty of examples of great music that uses quarter notes, that uses eighth notes. I'll bet in most of those cases, there's probably some sort of accenting, some sort of phrasing, something that's keeping it from being completely plain. But what I really like about this rule is how practical it is. The point for me is to find these rules and these tricks and these things that I can use to consistently produce results. It's like a shortcut and it works.
Go on and move with it if you need to. It helps me.
If you want people to actually stick around and hear your ostinato, you're gonna have to pull them in with a compelling introduction. In this video, I use music from the game Skyward Sword to show you how to write a great intro. I made the mistake of releasing it on the 4th of July, and so it kind of got overlooked. So if you could check it out, I would appreciate it.